Welcome to another episode of Your Brain on Guitar. I started with that because I feel like that sequence is quite lyrical. Think about how many ways you can say yes and no with your words, with your body. Think about that whole tangential language we have with something like a musical instrument to try and communicate positivity, negativity, gestures. That's what I want to get into. So I hope you'll enjoy. I'm Dr. Simon Andrew Whitton. I have a PhD in neuroscience and a master's previously in music, mind and brain. My research career has taken me on quite a journey, but it's never strayed too far from music, as much as I've tried. What if the urge to pick up a guitar like this isn't about taste, but it's about an echo of a communication system humans had long before language? This is a Maton 2013 EBG808TE Tommy Emmanuel model, Sitka spruce top, Queensland maple, back and sides, Maton scalloped X bracing, and inside is what I honestly think is the best pickup system I've ever used. Today I want to show you how your brain on guitar is tied to a very old human Hmmm or Hmmmm system. I'll explain what that is, and why guitars like this feel so weirdly alive under our fingers. Now, this is Your Brain on Guitar, episode 2. Thanks so much for coming back. Beethoven. And I heard the anecdote that someone once asked him or complimented him on his music, and his response was, "You should hear what's in my head." I can really identify with that. You know, there's always been something, a perfect song, a perfect sound in my head that I've always tried to solve, express, or reflect. Now, I'm aware this sounds abstract and esoteric, but for me, all of this feels very basic and human, and I hope by the end, this will feel the same for you. If anything resonates, comment with your own story as we go. And if you're here and you haven't subscribed, please do that so you don't miss the next one. And it really helps me to grow this fledgling of a channel. So in the first Your Brain on Guitar episode, I talked about the intimate relationships we form with guitars and the strange compulsion some of us feel to keep searching for that right instrument or the right song, the right sound. Propensity as an almost affliction. Compulsion being another word, but maybe passion's the best ultimate description, because passion is pendular. It swings between painful and joyful, and isn't that the creative endeavour? Today I want to hang that pendulum on something deeper, the way humans have used sound, movement and rhythm to communicate long before we spoke in sentences. There's a lovely ancient concept, Xenia, ritualized hospitality and exchange, a formalized way of offering something to others. Music fits beautifully inside Xenia. When you play a guitar for someone, you're offering something transient. It arrives through their senses, they do whatever they like with it, and then it's gone. So the real question is, when you pick up a guitar like this, you play it for somebody, what exactly are you offering? Notes, a mood, a temporary shared state of mind? One of the ideas I love in music psychology literature is the early hominid communication system. So it's called Hmmm or Hmmmm. So instead of neat sentences, think of holistic, multimodal, manipulative, and musical communication. Gesture, vocalizations, rhythm, these were all used by our ancient ancestors to influence behaviour and emotions, not to tell you facts about the world. An author I love, Rudolf Laban, a Hungarian dancer, choreographer, prominent author on body language. He gives this great example of how many ways you can say the word no in your body. Flicking, ringing, dabbing, slashing, gliding. All these movements, they say no differently. Think of how many ways you can say yes in every language. Yes, we, see. These are all vocalizations that show the teeth in a disarming kind of way, not an aggressive way. In another strand of work, ape and monkey communication, their calls, they don't fall into discrete categories the way our words do. They grade into one another. So bonobos, for example, they use iconic gestures, beckoning other animals from a distance with a rhythm and movement recognizably musical in feel. Geladas and gibbons, their communication systems, they're rhythmic, synchronized, and they involve turn-taking. They're not music in the concert hall sense, but the building blocks are there. So even before language, we had systems that were holistic, multimodal, and musical. The roots of what we do on this guitar, they're older than chords and scales. Now, if this old communication system, if it sparks anything, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know whether you feel like you're talking when you're playing, or whether the experience is something else entirely. So as hominids evolved, changes in the jaw and how the tongue and lips evolved, they created this finer control of sound. Each syllable, essentially, a little choreographed gesture in the mouth. When we say bad, we start with a particular tongue position, and when we say dad, another. Every syllable relates to a particular oral gesture. Now, neuroscience work has shown that music and language, they share modules in the brain. Unsurprisingly, given that they likely grew out of a common system. But they've also had thousands of years of partly independent evolution. Modules once central to pitch, they got recruited more for music, and others more for grammar. So the environment your brain grows up in, it tunes which side gets more exercise. One of my favourite observations in this work is that when we listen to instrumental music, we still treat it as a kind of virtual person, an emotional state, personality, intention. So that's why much music is structured like conversation, and why we feel it must mean something, even when we can't put that meaning into words. Language, too, is more musical than we admit. In everyday speech, we rely heavily on pre-stored multi-word units, formulaic phrases like, hi, how are you, rather than freshly composing grammar on the fly every time. On guitar, we do the same thing. Licks, shapes, progressions. Our brains love formulas they can retrieve holistically. Another powerful piece of the puzzle, and I think this really gets to it, is infant-directed speech, or IDS. So studies with the musicians have shown that different parts of the brain respond to melody, rhythm, and harmony in distinct but overlapping ways. Even when listening to Bach chorales in the scanner, melody tends to activate both hemispheres of the brain. Rhythm tends to activate a little more left, harmony, parts of the cerebellum. It's quite a dance. And in newborns, infant-directed speech, it primarily grabs attention. Exaggerated pitch contours, rhythmic patterns, these create pleasure or surprise. With slightly older infants, adults intuitively change those contours to modulate arousal and emotion. Low falling contours, they soothe. Rising contours engage. Brief staccato high-pitched contours warn. Later, the same melodies and rhythms start to communicate feelings and intentions, not just arousal. The child learns to read emotions from contours and rhythm long before they learn the words. So your nervous system learns very early that pitch and timing are meaning. Long before you know what Maton or a guitar is, your brain knows what a rising line does in the body. Which brings me back to this specific guitar, my EBG808TE. It's a Tommy Emmanuel signature model, AAA select Sitka spruce on the top, Queensland maple back and sides, and a compact body that's shallower than a dreadnought. It's 25.5-inch scale length again, you know from the last video how much I like that for fingerstyle playing. The neck is Queensland maple with a comfortable profile. Streaky ebony fingerboard now, although mine's rosewood from 2013. A herringbone rosette, Grover Rotomatic tuners, a bone, nut and saddle. Acoustically, I find it's balanced. It's not got a huge boomy bass or a brittle top end. It's just got this really focused mid-range and responds, I think, like a great conversational partner. When I change my touch, it answers with slightly subtler high frequency space than that McElroy A25C has that I did in the last video. Plugged in, this guitar carries Maton's AP5 Pro pickup system, which I happily argue is one of the best acoustic systems out there. So inside, you've got an undersaddle piezo with 6 individual crystals. These are specialized materials that generate an electrical voltage when they are physically deformed or squeezed. And that's important because usually you don't get 6. It's got a cardioid microphone on an adjustable arm. I have never adjusted it. On the top, separate gain controls for bass and treb. These are useful. And it's got this mid-range fader, so you can take it off between 600 hertz and about 2.5 kilohertz. Got a volume master, of course. The result is this studio-like clarity in a live setting. I'll switch to the pickup here. Up the mic a bit so you can tell the difference. So if you've played a Maton, an AP5 Pro, or a different pickup system, tell me in the comments what you noticed in your own brain while you plugged it in. And again, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so we can keep exploring this together. One thing that's a big problem with acoustic pickups is that sort of quacky kind of sound, and I feel like this one completely avoids it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So taken together, this picture, it makes musical propensity look less like a random quirk and more like being especially tuned to one of humanity's oldest communication channels. The guitars you bond with, whether it's a Maton like this, a baritone as I featured, or a battered old beta. Some are better at soothing, infant-directed speech, contours. These stick with us through life. Some conversational mid-range offers a lot of nuance, conversationally. So choosing a guitar isn't just about tone wood fashions. It's choosing what part of that communicative history you want to inhabit and amplify. I'll ask again, which guitar in life feels more like a conversational partner with you? Which feels more like a tool? We've gone from ancient gesture systems and infant-directed speech discussion to the very modern reality of plugging in 2013 Maton EBG808TE. So for me, this arc, it says that your brain on guitar is both deeply old and very much alive right now. I'd like to get in episode 3 a bit more specific about experiments and brain scan studies on musicians. What exactly has changed when you spend decades with an instrument, and how might this shape your creativity and your sense of self? I'd also like to share some of my own work on musical imagery. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and comment with one of your questions about music and the brain that you'd most like me to tackle. That will help me aim episode 3 where it's most useful to you. If you have subscribed already, then thank you. If you can share it with somebody who will appreciate this weekly guitar geekery, then please share it. Thanks so much. This has been Your Brain on Guitar. I'm Dr. Simon Andrew Whitton. Hope you have a good day.